All right, Chaz Smith, we are back from commercial.
The
I've
escargot at Lele's. That's
oh
another one. Have
really?
you ever had the escargot at Lele's? It's honestly the best escargot I've ever had in my entire life at Lele's, right there at
Wow.
Turtle Bay. I don't know. I don't even think it's called Lele's anymore, but yeah,
Yeah, that's weird. I would never expect that.
incredible
It's out
escargot.
of good to
Yeah,
know. I'll
yeah,
try it next time I'm there.
yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get much more patience out of Austin at this point.
Great.
So I think we
Barrel or
do
not.
some barrel or Nas and then I give him some attention.
Do it.
Uh this one comes from a listener, and it's also in reference to a big news story this week in the surf world. DLS and Chaz, barrel or not, quote, getting into the wine industry, or collabing with your rad adventure buddies to shill alcohol because it's, quote, sustainable. Interesting to hear you guys take since you've been in the wine industry. I know action sports guys have done this with beer like St. Archer, and this seems more genuine because there is a sustainable bent, but it still leaves a poor taste in my mouth. I love the Gudang Bros. I love Jeremy Jones, but I doubt they've been sipping on wine and trying to come up with ways to make packaging more sustainable. I guess the answer, but I guess this answers your question about what the Gudangs will do after Vans. Dane is so stoked that probably every wine that he's ever tasted, he's like super stoked on the minerality of this one, or this other one is a super sick jam bomb with a big smile on his face. Anyways, would love to hear your thoughts. Keep work, Dave. So
Uh,
this is in reference to the announcement of Revel Shine
Revel
wine.
Shine wine, which the twist on Revel Shine is it comes in a aluminum bottle, not a glass bottle. That's the conceit. So with did you read? There was a funny comment in the Beach Crit comments, which was question: uh, how do you make a small fortune in the wine business? Do
Start
you
with a
know?
huge fortune.
Exactly. Start with a huge fortune. So apparently, and I am unawares of all these things, but you would know better than me, David Lee Scales. But the what you think of, oh, alcohol is just profit, 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 right? Like it's recession proof. It is on and on and on and on. Get in the booze biz. Apparently, it's not so wonderful, is it?
No, it's not. And that old adage, that joke is 100% true. You know, even the most famous California wineries, they don't make as much money as what that person made before they invested in the winery. They're kind of investing all that money just to have a lifestyle business, essentially. If it then gets bought out by a bigger brand or whatever, a big distribution company, then that's what you're really hoping for, and that's where you'll see the return on the investment. But for every big buyout, there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of losses, people who just dumped all of their savings into a black hole. So it's a tough nut to crack, but when it does, like the St. Archer story, I think,
They
it
crushed.
entices everybody else to do it, and then you just see a bunch of failures.
And I really truly do love Jeremy Jones, love the Gudangs, love everybody involved with this except for Salema Masekela. And so I wish them the best, but I don't understand if you're going to do something sustainable. So wine comes in glass bottles, which are wonderfully recyclable, most commonly. It also can come in boxes, which I would imagine are also recyclable.
Yep.
I don't know how the aluminum flex. If wine came in plastic jugs, then I'd say, "Well, great, you're giving me a sustainable option here." I do not, the wine better be really good to come in a aluminum bottle. There's a winery out of Oregon. Can't remember what it's called, but they do wine in a can that I'll get occasionally. And
Is it Underwood?
Underwood, exactly. And I only get that wine in a can if I need wine in a can, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm
You're going to
going
a
somewhere,
concert or
yeah, I
yeah.
need for whatever that 1 to 2 times a year that I need wine in a can, but the wine is not great. The can, I think, harms it a bit, or it feels like not so great. And so, yeah,
It
I
officially
don't get
doesn't
this.
it like scientifically officially does not taint it, but it the taste of the metal on your lips and the taste of the wine passing through it does affect me. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't taste as good as wine out of a glass.
yeah.
So, look, I wish these guys the best of luck
Best of
and
luck.
hopefully they'll have success. But in relation to our listeners' inquiry about quote barrel or nah getting into the wine industry, I'm going to say nah. I'm going to say um, it's risky business as an investment. And then if you're just looking to become a wine rep or whatever, it's risky business for becoming an alcoholic as well. So it's best, I think, to keep it as a passion that you enjoy and not try to make a living off of it.
I'm going to go barrel in terms of anything that is a passion. Don't let finances stand in the way. Go out there and do you, man.
Look, don't let finances stand in the way, but also don't
Piss
do
them
it
away.
8 hours a day,
Yeah.
5 days a week
Yeah.
is my concern there too, you know?
Yeah.
So I have friends in the wine business who like, have wineries or work in wine country or they're winemakers. And that is a beautiful lifestyle. I see all of the charm in that. And I think they're very happy and they, whatever they do great and they love it. But it comes with a lot of risk in those ways that we already stated. So I'm going to say steer clear, enjoy it as a passion.
Your advice here better than mine.
Okay, well, I've got another one from a listener, which this has come up actually a lot. I've just never mentioned it before, but I'll let them deliver it.
For the grit. Well, Uncle Chaz and Uncle David, which I feel I have the right to call you, I've been listening to this podcast since I was a teenager when I met Chaz at a surf event. And now I'm in my mid-20s as a functioning member of society, which I believe I only have the wise advice of Chaz Smith and David Lee Scales to thank. So, I realized during all this time, I've only ever listened to the grit at one-time speed. Never sped it up to fit it in a drive or to get through a long podcast. I always felt that the podcast must be consumed the way it was recorded. You wouldn't chug down a $2,000 bottle of wine. So, barrel or not, speeding up podcast. Keep working.
So I was unaware that people even did this, and I've always seen there's a little button on your podcast player that says 1.5 speed, and then I think you can go faster than that as well. And I've had people comment in the comment sections of our shows, and they're like, especially Australians for some reason, they're like, Americans talk so slow. The only way I can listen to that show is at 1.5 speed. And I'm like, wow, I've never considered doing it, but people do it. So what are your thoughts?
Wow. Well, this ties into a greater phenomena. Like, so daughter and I, 11-year-old, just turned 11, share a Spotify account. And so a lot of her, whatever liked songs, they'll filter now into my what
Yeah.
Spotify serves me up. And there's a whole trend of songs sped up, like where it is sped up version is, Taylor Swift, da 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 da, sped up version, where and
Wow.
Taylor kind of sounds like a little bit of a mouse, and nothing really besides the song changes other than the singer's voice is sped up. Uh, so this is a phenomenon happening. Uh, as it relates to our podcast, I mean, yes, I would say it's a barrel to 1.5 the grit. It is no barrel to 1.5. Whose podcast would you listen to for their voice, right? Where there are out there, I think ones that it's the tone, it's the delivery, it's the kind of the gravitas of all of that that it's part and parcel with what makes the podcast good. Like if I don't know who's the dad on Secession, Brian Cox. If
Yeah, yeah,
Brian
yeah.
Cox had a podcast, then how dare you 1.5 that, right? You listen to that, you savor that. You and I are the Coors Light of podcasts. So beer bong this thing, man, like shotgun it.
That's what I was going to say too. It takes us lots of times, 90 minutes to come up with like kind of the essence of what I was trying to say at the beginning of the
Yep.
show. So I think there's probably um 3 good minutes in a 90-minute episode. And so you can kind of just push through most of it. And then
Yep.
you'll hear us babbling a lot, and then you'll get the main gist of it at the end, and that's
Yep.
fine.
Have you ever
So
listened to us in 1.5?
I've never listened to anything at 1.5.
I'm gonna after this is done, I'm gonna 1.5 us and see how we go. It's my
And there's
one.
other things that I listen to that are so dense that I can't keep up at the real speed. Like they're delivering so much information, and it's kind of like I'm learning so much. I almost have to go back and listen a second time. If I sped that up, I'd miss everything. Whereas you and I, the exact opposite, delivering
Exactly.
very little information in a very long
Long
format.
time. But I because there needs to be you can't have everything as 25-year barrel aged peat whiskey. You
Right.
also need Coors Light. You and
True.
I, Coors Light. Chug us, baby.
I'm fine with it. Yeah, chug it down. Final barrel or not, bringing back the phrase hot dogging in surfing.
I like it. Barrel. I'm barrel already. Like, I love it. That guy's a hot dogger. Kids these days, all they do is hot dog. Every bit of it,
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm barrel. I feel ashamed that it's dropped out of my vocabulary.
So I read it last week in the EOS write up on the Ninja Turtle guy, Gary Proper. Gary Proper in EOS write up, it was like he brought the East Coast hot dogging to the world, I think is what the quote was. And I was like, why don't we talk about Felipe Toledo hot dogging his way through lowers?
Yeah,
He did.
he
He
did.
hot dogged that thing. You know what I mean? And it's like he is the ultimate hot dogger at lowers. And it just, I like it. I think it has a place.
Okay, but to your point, okay, is hot dogging a subtle slur? Is it like a light denigration of something? Is hot dogging not as like if a guy is ripping? I mean, does hot dogging replace ripping, or is hot dogging something different? Is hot dogging like it's showy and it's flashy, but it's not really quality?
I see what you're saying. When it was originally introduced, it was for high performance maneuvering, let's say, or just more maneuvering on a longboard that was traditionally less maneuverable.
Okay, so it
So
wasn't just a good though, right? Because you would have had the traditionalists thinking this guy's wiggling his bottom out there doing these twisty turns, hot
the
dogging.
traditionalists would have Phil Edwards would have looked at Nat Young's hot dogging and been like, I would never try to hot dog,
Yeah.
So it was derogatory for the traditionalist. But yeah, and you're right. Like now when you're talking about shortboarding, like quote ripping, that also feels different than quote hot dogging. So maybe we reserve hot dogging for something in the middle that is mid-length related.
Okay. Okay. Making it like so Devin Howard hot dogs. Devin
Devin
Howard's out
Howard
there.
definitely hot dogging. Yeah, I'd say
Devin
Devin Howard is
Howard's
definitely hot dogging.
okay. We figured it out. Devin Howard is out there on a let's call it a more traditional craft. Let's call the mid-length mid-length is definitely not a high performance board. And yet we have Devin Howard out there doing big old wraparound turns. They're all smooth and stuff, but they're hot
Yeah,
doggy. Devin
yeah.
Howard's a hot dogger.
So it's not derogatory in my mind. Like the way that we're using it isn't saying like he's gyrating too much.
No, no.
It's that he's ripping on a slightly more traditional style board.
Yeah, he's ripping
Because
on a not.
what Felipe Toledo's doing, going backwards and blowing the fins out and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there could be a sausage related reference in there, like hot dogging is mid-lengthing, but Felipe Toledo's is knockworsting,
Yeah.
or something like that. We need to
Oh,
find a different phallic tube of meat
yeah, perfect. I love
for
it.
each portion of surfing, I think.
Yes, I totally love it. And it makes perfect sense. And it's something that's missing. It's a whole
Yeah,
category of how to talk about something that's missing because we've all flattened everything to ripping or non-ripping, right? Like I ripped.
right.
He doesn't really rip. Like there's way more nuance in what we are experiencing and seeing than just the word ripping.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna come up
Backing
with a
it.
list for next week of
Sausages.
encased meats,
Perfect.
phallic
Phallic
shaped.
meats. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love it.
because every country has one,
Sure.
or multiple.
Yeah.
And there's
Chorizo.
breakfast versions. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's breakfast versions. There's dinner versions. Yeah. So okay, we'll get to the bottom of this and then we'll apply them accordingly. It'll take some time. It's a big project, but
It
we'll
is.
get to it.
We will. We'll do it.
All right, that's what we do here. We do the work, not good
That's
work. We do the work.
exactly.